Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Varudikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Varudikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kuntaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nasta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. In loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. But before we begin the Bhagavatam class, today is the appearance day of Lochana Dasa Thakura, who we will now read about. Sri Lochana Dasa Thakura was a disciple of Shri Narahari Sarakara Thakura, a dearest associate of Lord Gora Rai, that's Lord Chaitanya. And this is a quote from Lochana Dasa from his Chaitanya Mangala. My hope of hopes is to be near the lotus feet of Shri Narottam Das Thakura and serve him with my very life. Thank you. The cherished desire of the fallen Lochana Das is to be allowed, by Narahari's grace, to sing the glories of Lord Gauranga. My Lord is Shri Narahari Thakura. I am his servant. Bowing before him, I beg for his service. This is my only aspiration. Lochana Dasa Thakura wrote Chaitanya Mangala, which tells many pastimes of Lord Chaitanya not revealed by Vrindavan Das Thakur or Krishna Das Kaviraj. He mentions an especially touching conversation Lord Chaitanya had with Vishnu Priya Devi the night before he took sannyas. Being a talented musician, Lochana Das told Mahaprabhu's pastimes in beautiful poetry filled with fire and rhythm. Common people could easily understand the divine character of Lord Chaitanya and awaken their religious feelings. As devotees regularly chant the Vedic epics Ramayana and Mahabharata, so Gaudiya Vaishnavas still wander through Bengal reciting the Chaitanya Mangala. Lochana Dasa Thakura also wrote many songs praising Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Gauridas Pandit. Lochana Das stresses that Raganuga Bhaktas must take shelter of Gadadhar Vrindavaneshwari to attain Radha Govinda Prema Bhakti. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to print and distribute Lochana Dasa Thakura's Sri Chaitanya Mangala. Srila Prabhupada was very fond of his bhajans. While singing Parama Karuna, Srila Prabhupada would plunge into the ocean of Gauranga Prem. Srila Prabhupada wrote an extensive commentary on this bhajan. Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudada Vishwasa Kori. Lochana Das asks everyone, my dear brother, just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm faith and conviction. Don't think this chanting and dancing will not lead to the desired goal. It will. It is the assurance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one will get all perfection by this process. Therefore one must chant with firm faith and conviction. Lochana Dasa Thakura's Samadhi is in the 64 Samadhis area. Is that in Rupa Goswami Samadhi? Is that where that is? That all those Samadhis? I think that's it, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, now moving to the Bhagavatam. What about your song? I'm sorry? What about your song? Oh, Paramakarana? Yeah. Should I do it? What's the consensus? We've got 5 of us. Okay, that's it. I totally forgot. Yeah. You want to sing it? You know it better than me. All right, I'm going to have to read it, so give me a second here. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's way up there. Okay. Where's our drummer? I lost our drummer. Can someone take the drum? I need a drum. Drummer. Can you pick one of the other drums? We had a soprano drum this morning. It wasn't so good. No, let's sing it. Are you kidding me? I'll just sing the English. Super compassionate are these 2 golden lords, Nitai Gaurachandra. They are the best of lords, questions of avatars, founts of pure bliss and deep wonder. All friends, just worship them, Chaitanya Nitai, fixing your mind with firm faith. Give up all sense pleasure, dive in the sea of bliss, chant Hari Hari today. Super compassionate are these 2 golden lords, Nitai Gaurachandra. They are the best of lords, quest jewels of avatars, founts of pure bliss and deep wonder. Hold on a second. Okay. Brothers and sisters within the 3 worlds, there is no one as kindly as they. Even the birds, stones, and animals weep in bliss when they hear talks of their trades. All mine, just hear me, if you do not obtain any desire for their service, Yama will punish us, causing us endless pain. This is what Lochana Dasa says. Now you know why I didn't sing it. Okay, moving on to the class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this third day of June 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in Canto 5, the Creative Impetus, Chapter 11, Jada Bharat instructs King Rahugana, text number 3. Na tasya tattva grahanaya sakshad Variyasir apivachaha samasan swapne niruktya grihamedhi saukyam nayasya heyanumitam swayam syat natasya tattva grahanaya sakshad Variyasir apivacha samasan swapne niruktya grihamedhi saukyam nayasya heyanumitam swayam syat natasya tattva grihanaya sakshad Variyasir apivacha samasan Swapne nuruktya grihamedhi saukyam nayasya heyanumitam swayam syat natasya tattva grihanaya sakshad Variyasir apivacha samasan Swapne nuruktya grihamedhi saukyam Nayasya heyanumitam swayam syat. Natasya tattva grahanaya sakshad Variyasir apivacha samasan Swapne niruktya grihamedhi saukyam Nayasya heyanumitam swayam syat. Natasya tattva grihanaya sakshad Variyasir apivacha samasan Swapne niruktya grihamedhi saukyam Nayasya heyanumitam swayam syat. Natasya tattva grihanaya sakshad Variyasir apivacha samasan Swapne niruktya grihamedhi saukyam Nayasya heyanumitam swayam sad. Govardhan, you can do it. Natasya tattva grihanaya sakshad Variyasir apivacha samasan Swapne niruktya grihamedhi saukyam Nayasya heyanumitam swayam syat. You want to try? Yes, a little far. Your eyes aren't that great. The writing isn't that great. Okay. Na, not. Tasya, of him. A student studying the Vedas. Tattva grahanaya, for accepting the real purpose of Vedic knowledge. Sakshat, directly. Variyasi, very exalted. Api, although. Vachaha, words of the Vedas. Samasan, sufficiently became. Swapne, in a dream. Niruktya, by example. Grihamedhi saukyam, happiness within this material world. Na, not. Yasya, of him who. Heya anumitam, concluded to be inferior. Swayam, automatically. Syat, become. Translation. A dream becomes automatically known to a person as false and immaterial, and similarly, one eventually realizes that material happiness in this life or the next, on this planet or a higher planet, is insignificant. When one realizes this, the Vedas, although an excellent source, are insufficient to bring about direct knowledge of the truth. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.45, Krishna advised Arjuna to become transcendental to the material activities impelled by the three modes of material nature. Trigunya vishayadeda nistrigunya bhavarjana. The purpose of Vedic study is to transcend the activities of the three modes of material nature. Of course, in the material world, the mode of goodness is accepted as the best, and one can be promoted to the higher planetary systems by being on the sattva guna platform. However, that is not perfection. One must come to the conclusion that even the sattva guna platform is also not good. One may dream that he has become a king with a good family, wife, and children, but immediately at the end of that dream, he comes to the conclusion that it is false. Similarly, all kinds of material happiness are undesirable for a person who wants spiritual salvation. If a person does not come to the conclusion that he has nothing to do with any kind of material happiness, he cannot come to the platform of understanding the absolute truth, or tattva jnana. Karmis, jnanis, and yogis are after some material elevation. The karmis work hard day and night for some bodily comfort, and the jnanis simply speculate about how to get out of the entanglement of karma and merge into the Brahman effulgence. The yogis are very much addicted to the acquisition of material perfection and magical powers. All of them are trying to be materially perfect, but a devotee very easily comes to the platform of nirguna in devotional service, and consequently for the devotee the results of karma, jnana, and yoga become very insignificant. Therefore, only the devotee is on the platform of tattva jnana, not the others. Of course, the jnani's position is better than that of the karmi, but that position is also insufficient. The jnani must actually become liberated, and after liberation, he may be situated in devotional service. Mad bhaktim labate param. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this theme keeps coming up about how material life is a dream. It's dreamlike. And I wanted to read one verse from the 11th canto, which I've queued up here. This is 11.238. It comes after the first verse in the series, answered by, I always forget which Yogendra is speaking. But he's answering the question, what is the ultimate good? And it's interesting that he begins with explaining what the source of fear is, or how one can escape fear. This is actually a second or third verse in the series. And the famous verse is Bayam Dvatiya Banabeshitakshyad Ishadapetasya Viparhiyo Asmriti Tanmahayato Buddha Abhajetam Bhaktyakayesham Guru Devatatma. So fear, which is universal in material life, even though one may at certain points forget about the dangers of the world, it's always in the background, and before long it comes knocking on your, smashing on your head. There's some danger that comes, something unpleasant. Your whole life is up for grabs. This COVID thing has brought a tremendous increase in the fear quotient in everybody in the world. Everyone knows they're not safe, no matter where they are. And so the dream of trying to forget that you're in danger, to forget old age, disease, and death, and disease is really under attack. And that's material life. Any time that you're not afraid, that you're thinking you're fine, is total illusion. It's like the animals. The animals, they're constantly afraid. I just heard Prabhupada talk about birds. Birds come down to the ground and pick some seeds or something, or some worms, But they're always looking around. There may be some danger. And as soon as they get some scent of a cat or whatever, any indicator of danger, boom, they fly up into the tree to get away, So and every animal has that. There's a fight or flight, and that's the difficult, impossible life of animals. But in human life also, the dangers keep coming. You're leading an ordinary life, everything is going on okay, and then the pandemic comes, or your kid gets sick, or you have an accident, or whatever happens. There's all of these unpleasantries that comes along with the material body. So fear and how it begins is that you turn away from Krishna. At Krishna's fearless lotus feet, by Charanada Vindave, Parvat's name is named after that song by Lochana Dasa Thakura. That only in Krishna's at Krishna's lotus feet in service is there really fearlessness, because Krishna's completely transcendental to fear. And if you don't have a material body, if you're in the spiritual world, or you're in this world in completely spiritual consciousness, then you can be free of fear. And that's explained in this series of verses. So the origin, what is the origin of this? We lose our shelter. We leave our shelter. Like Krishna's lotus feet in his service in the spiritual world. We turn away and we become absorbed in this relative material world. And it's a world of dualities. Yes, there's some pleasure, but there's also some pain. And ultimately, the pain really outweighs the pleasure. The pain of old age, disease, death, rebirth, all of these different things, threefold miseries. Krishna says, dukkhalayam. So that's there. So that means that there's a lot of fear involved in your enterprise to be independent, to be an independent enjoyer and owner and controller. That's what it means. As soon as you do that, you turn away from Krishna, become absorbed in this dual world. Bayam ishara petasya viparyo smriti. Viparya means your position is reversed. Instead of being your natural position, which is our swarup, jivara swarup, boy, Krishna and Nityadas. We're eternal servants of Krishna. So we reject that, right? So no, we're not in our swarup anymore. So viparyo, everything becomes upside down. We could try to be the masters and enjoyers. It's a false platform. And asmriti, you forget everything. So what should we do about it? First he says, what's the influence? It's yan mayato, by the influence of Maya. She's Krishna's agent for entrapping us in this illusion, this untruth, this big lie. This is the real original big lie with all capital letters, is that we are the body and we can enjoy and we're masters here, So trying to live that lie is just a world of suffering. So and it's caused by Maya. Yan Maya to Buddha. One has to be intelligent. One has to, atato brahma jigyasa. In this human life, one has to inquire into the absolute truth. What is the source of all my suffering? How can I end it? Who am I? Is there a source of it? If there is, who is it or what is it? What is this world? All of these questions, if they don't arise, then you're just prolonging the agony, prolonging your sojourn in the material world. And the chances are, if that's your consciousness, you're going to lose a human form of life, and then you'll be condemned to lower life to a long time. You come back up to this is the fate of the soul in ignorance. So Buddha abhajetam. It's very, very simple. That the solution is to worship that very person who we turned away from. Worship the Isha, the Supreme Lord Krishna. And how? Bhakti aikayation, with one-pointed, unmotivated devotional service. Aikaya means one-pointed. Krishna says, surrender only unto me. No fudging. And that's what these verses are all about. We're going to review them. The ones in the Bhagavatam we're reading. And Guru Devatatma. Now, Guru Devatatma means one should see one's guru who's connected to Krishna, who is our bridge to Krishna, the transparent medium by which Krishna can instruct us, as one's very worshipable Lord and it's good, and Guru Deva Tatma, and one's very self. In other words, one should have tremendous devotion and love and faith in the spiritual master. So that's the salute. And then the next verse is the one I wanted to focus on a little bit, because he deals with the same idea of how this material world is like a dream. Avidyamano yobhati hidvayo. Just spare you the Sanskrit. It's kind of a lengthy translation with some purport in it. Although the duality of the material world does not ultimately exist, duality is a concoction. You know, we keep hearing matas parshta konteya, you have to be tolerant of the dualities. And Lord Chaitanya has a verse, which I forget exactly, the Bengali. But the idea that there are good things and bad things in the material world, it's all an illusion. You know, it's all part of the dualities that are keeping us bound here. Oh, I got to escape from the bad, I have to run toward the good. That we have to stop. The dualities of delusion, actually it's the delusion of duality. It says, Yesham dvandakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohane mukta bhajante mam judavata. Now this comes after the verse where Prabhupada quotes how we came to the material world. He says this is the proof in the Bhagavad Gita. Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani konteya sargayanti parantapa. So how does this work? It's exactly related to the other verse I chanted, Bayam to Diyaban. Icha and dvesha. We want to enjoy on our own, and we abhor serving Krishna. That's the Icha Dvesha Samutena, meaning absorbed in this Icha and Dvesha, desiring to be enjoyers and hating to serve Krishna. That's what brings us to this world. Icha Samutena, from that mentality, Samutena, Dvandva Moha, the illusion of duality, that in this material world, these things are good for my sense gratification, I have to avoid that. And you spend all your time avoiding the bad, maximizing what you think is good, and it keeps you bound in this material world. Sarva Bhutani Konteya, all living entities who are here in the material world are of that mentality. We started with that. Sargayanti. Sargayanti means Prabhupada gives it this word. They come into creation. This is the Sarga. We were in the Sarga, means the creation of Brahma. Parantapa. So what's the solution? One has to end his sinning, which is everything outside of Krishna consciousness. It can be a slight sin, or it can be a grievous sin, and you get proportionally punished. But it keeps you in ignorance, sinful mentality. So yesham antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam, and only performing punya. This means bhakti in this context. It doesn't mean material punya. That's described in the Bhagavatam verses. It's not the way home. That's back to heaven, back home. Then come back here. One becomes liberated from the delusion of duality. And what's the result? One worships me, one performs bhakti with a firm vow. That's how you can have firmness and determination and enthusiasm in your bhakti, by giving up your attempts to enjoy the duality or try to avoid the pains in duality, and stopping sin. So those two verses probably would quote all the time. Now, I just want to read the translation of this verse after Bayam, and it deals with this dreamlike existence. Although the duality of the material world does not ultimately exist, the conditioned soul experiences it as real under the influence of his own conditioned intelligence. This imaginary experience of a world separate from Krishna can be compared to the acts of dreaming and desiring. When the conditioned soul dreams at night of something desirable or horrible, or when he daydreams of what he would like to have or avoid, he creates a reality that has no existence beyond his own imagination. The tendency of the mind is to accept and reject various activities based on sense gratification. Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, he will experience actual fearlessness. So, what we're trying to cultivate in our study of the Bhagavatam and the Gita and other books of Prabhupada, chanting of the holy name, all of the worship, the different process of devotional service is changing the way we see ourselves and the same way we see this world, by seeing everything in relation to Krishna. He starts his instruction to Arjuna in chapter 7. Now remember, Prabhupada explains that the middle 6 chapters of the Gita are the essence, right? So what is the 6th chapter? It is a summary, a description of Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. And the idea is also the same thing, is to fix one's mind on the Lord within the heart and to transcend the modes of material nature. And he has this wonderful description in text 20 to 23, I think it is, where he describes samadhi. And Prabhupada would often quote that, especially the line, Yamdag vala chapanam la manyate nadikam tata. That having achieved this bliss of enjoying, one's relation with the Supreme within the heart through transcendental senses, one thinks there's no other gain, no greater gain. And you're beyond any fear, and there's quite a description there. But he's talking about dhyana yoga, and Arjuna rejects it. He says it's impossible. Chanchalam himana Krishna, my mind is too disturbed, And so Krishna encouraged him, yes, it's possible by practice, and even if you don't exceed at first, you'll be able to be reborn in a pious family, or even a family of yogis, bhakti yogis like that. Yeah. But altogether, Arjuna is not going to take it up. And Krishna encourages him at the end of the chapter. Says don't worry. Yogi nama bisarvesham madgatena antaratma. The greatest yogis are those who are always thinking of me within the heart and worshiping me with great and transcendental faith. So that's I'm always thinking of Krishna. Yeah, okay. So that's encouraging. So the very next verse is beginning of chapter 7, and then he's saying how, because it's all the mind. The mind is the whole thing. How do we become more attached to Krishna? How does our mind become more filled with Krishna thought and everything until finally we're 100% Krishna consciousness? That's but we have to start with where we are. So he starts explaining, now I'm going to tell you how your mind could be attached to me in your very daily life. And first he explains the energies, which anyone can understand: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Who doesn't understand solid matter, liquids, gases? Anyone can see that. So that's the building blocks. That's the material energies. My material energies, because my energies, separated. Then there's a little finer ether. Okay, space. That's space. And then mind. Everyone has a mind, right? That's one of them. Your intelligent discriminating factor, your sense of self. So these are the energies that make up our environment, and we're transcendental. We're the para prakriti within all of this, the soul. But we've forgotten that. We're identifying with this configuration of energy called our body, gross and subtle. So then he starts to saying, and now I am, all of these energies are mine, therefore the interactions are also mine, they come from me. And he starts explaining things that we experience every day. Rasoham apsukonteya, I am the taste of water, the light of the ability in man, light of the sun and the moon. I'm electricity, all these things, the fragrance of the earth. He goes through even sex life that's not against religious practice. So he's saying, when are you not experiencing things? The light of the sun, sound and ether, you're always experiencing one. So you should think of Krishna. It's a way of cultivating Krishna consciousness in your everyday life. You see? But the one caveat is you can't be trying to enjoy these different reactions for yourself, because then the covering will come over, you'll forget Krishna. The whole idea is trying to remember Krishna. And therefore we have a serious bhakta, a whole series of practices beginning with hearing and chanting to help us remember Krishna in a very intense way and concentrated way. So we're meant to apply that remembrance and what we learned to the rest of our life. Now, of course, those who are practicing full-time are very fortunate. Most people have to go to work, whatever. But even there, you're meant to integrate it and try to see everything in relation to Krishna. Try to give Krishna consciousness. There's no better way of being Krishna conscious than trying to preach Krishna consciousness. And so the idea is to wake up from the dream. And so this verse says, when the conditioned soul dreams at night, when he or sees something horrible, then he, or during the daytime, he starts, just daydreaming. This is all in his imagination. It's not actually real. The tendency of the mind is to accept and reject various activities based on sense gratification. That tendency has to be curbed. Because as soon as you get, that's the duality again, and then you're in an illusion. Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, he will experience actual fearlessness. So this idea of the dream, the famous verse I keep chanting, Arte Navidyamane, which means actually it's not real. Avidyamane, the same word as begins this verse, avidyamanopi, means it's not real, not present in reality. So actually our whole construct of what we consider real and important in our life is a daydream. The whole thing is unreal. And it begins with the misconception on this body, which you immediately fall into because we're so habituated to it, unless you're consciously trying to act on a spiritual platform. And that's what advancement in Krishna consciousness means. To increase more and more, you're acting on the spiritual platform and understanding your actual nature as part and parcel of Krishna and Krishna's servant. Just like the hand is meant to serve the purpose of the whole body, the person. We're meant to be Krishna's hands and legs and eyes and everything else in this world, and act in that way. And then we find ourselves, even without trying, to become more peaceful and more happy. This is the Brahma-bhuta platform Prabhupada talks about at the end of the purport here. Prasanatma, transcendental to the modes of nature. The modes of nature condition us and mediate our interaction with the world and with ourselves. If we're in the mode of passion, then we're going to be seeing the whole world as a place that we can manipulate for enjoyment. And that can consume us day and night. I'm working 18 hours. My perfect example that I always think of is the guy graduates from MIT or Harvard and immediately goes to Wall Street because he wants to become a billionaire. Gets hired at some job, maybe only at $100,000 a year, and or even as an intern, not getting paid, but he's learning the ropes. How to manipulate the money and the stocks and everything. What do you think he's thinking of day and night? Especially now where the stock market never closes. It's always open in either Singapore or New York, right? So you always have to check the prices. Can you imagine living a life like that? Instead of, smartav yaksadatam Vishnu or smartav yaksadatam money. Always thinking money. How can I increase the money? It's a hellish kind of existence. But so why? Because the mind is always in the mode of passion. And you have your acharyas, people who become billionaires, you can try. It's a hellish existence. But that's what people, and even ordinary people, just to make the money. Grihamedi Saukyam is in our verse. Grihamedi Saukyam is the pleasures that come within materialistic family life. What do we learn from Prahlad? In the verse, Yan Maitunadi? Tucham. Grihamedi Sukham, the same word is in our verse today. Right? Grihamedi Saukyam. So he's saying it's insignificant. Yan Maitunadi, one has to see that. Maitunadi, beginning with sex life, etc., as described by Rishabh recently. From the sex life comes, what is it? Pungsasya midibhavam medmitayam vidya gwantama griha, kshetra, sutta, apta, vittaya. So it goes in succession. First you have to have a place, right? So you have to move out of the van that you have your affair and then get an apartment. And so now, okay, we're going to set up a household. At least, So then in any civilized country, there's children come. Huge attachment. So griha, and you have to have a kshetra. It's a field where you can farm or a job in order to sustain. So you'd imagine, how that absorbs your mind, And then children, huge attachment. And with all the children in the family in any civilized society, you get a whole bunch of relatives, Griha Cheta Sutta Apta, and then to support it all, money, Vittaya. And what does it generate? What does it produce? Janasya Moha, more illusion characterized by Ahammameti, I and mine. I am the master of this household. These are all my relatives, like that. That's illusion. It's all a dream. You're just, everyone's his own body, the soul in a body, flapping for a few years, Prabhupada says, and then it's like bubbles meeting in the ocean out here. You look on the surf, there's all this foam, right? So the two bubbles come together for a few seconds and they split apart forever, And that's what this family life is. So he says, Grihameti Sukham. So all his happiness is tucham, is insignificant. Insignificant. But how are you gonna know that? You have to have contact with someone who can show you the other kind of happiness, transcendental happiness. And that's why the acharyas, the traveling preachers, the paramahamsas are meant to give an example of living on this platform beyond the dream and living extremely simply. I've been just reading the Anchal Leela in the CC. So many wonderful chapters there. I'm reading about Lochana Dasa Goswami, who was the emblem of renunciation. He had it made. You know, he was the only son of super wealthy zamindars. His uncle was named Hiranya Das, servant of gold. I mean, that's what the name means. Very wealthy, and his father Govardhan. They were pious. They hosted Haridas Thakur. They were Vaishnavas of a sort, but because they were so entangled in all this material thing, they weren't high class. You know, considered high class. So he got the mercy of Nityananda. He became completely detached. Nityananda gave him the blessing: you will soon be extracted, and you'll be able to extract yourself from this prison, and you'll be able to go to Lord Chaitanya. And he did. I won't tell the whole story, but it was very difficult. He was walking for 12 days in the forest, eating 3 times during that time. From the beginning, he showed the emblem of renunciation and detachment. So, but just see, you know, from a billionaire, he said, "The heck with that! I'm going to go to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya." and how did he get that blessing? You know, because he had a Haridas Thakur's association. He had Nityananda with the Panihati festival, the whole thing. You know, he was. So that's what it takes. And Prabhupada gave us that. He gave us that in his own person, and in his books, and in his movement, and everything. That he wanted to make other devotees who could then make more devotees, because they were living a life that was attractive. And that's how the books are sold. The people are attracted most often, I would say, to the devotee. They're, as we heard, I think in Hari Kesha's book, you know, it's the devotee's demeanor and his sincerity that comes through, that people, you know, they'd have to be somewhat open to it, but they become interested. Otherwise, they wouldn't be interested. That's why the guy who was a book salesman couldn't sell any books. He didn't have any bhakti or any sincerity. He probably didn't know what the books were about either. So that's what Jada Bharat is going to explain now to King Rahugana. That just as we become to understand when we wake up from a dream, oh, that was all a dream. If it was a bad dream, it says, thank God that was all a dream. And if it was a really good dream, it says, boy, I wish I could go back to sleep, but I have to go to work so we can get back into that dream, right? There's dreams like that. But one way or another, we know it's not real. It's not, you know, but the problem is that we wake up and go to work or do the whole thing. That's also a dream. That's also unreal. And I was thinking, because so much of, you know, today's, what's going on in the world today, you can see the damage that's done by believing things that aren't true, or refusing to believe things that are true. Let's deal with the pandemic for now. You know, I mean, we went out on Harinam, right? So there was a definite feel out there that people were trying to forget there was a pandemic, right? Did we see many masks? I didn't know hardly any masks. We didn't have any masks either. That's another point. But the idea is that people want to forget it. You know, it's such a frightening thing, and it just crimps your style, keeping, you know, and lockdown and all of this stuff. Let's go out there and blow it out on, you know, New Year's Eve. Because we went out for years New Year's Eve. It's always raucous, you know, but this it seemed to be even more so. And they opened up the whole street, you know. So all the material life is like that. I mean, everyone knows that they're going to die eventually, you know, they got to give it up. But everyone is living as if you know, this is the most important thing, and you know, build up my wealth and position in society, relationships, and all these things. But it doesn't take much. You know, it takes association with someone who's transcendental to it to realize, well, this is just a waste of time. This is worse than a waste of time. I'm putting all my money in the wrong bank account. You haven't been around. Did you ever hear that analogy before? You did. Yeah, it's kind of, Prabhupada gave us that. It's, some guy, he's working all his life, and he opens up an account when he's a kid. He's a young guy, 22. He opens up an account in the bank, and every week he's careful, because he's thinking of his retirement. He wants to say that this is before, or in some country without Social Security, whatever. So he dutifully deposits as much as he can in his account, and then he comes to be 65 or 70, and says, "Okay, now's my chance. Now I can take it all out. According to my calculations, I've got $100,000 in there." So he finally goes to the bank, says, "Well, I'd like to withdraw my money. Can you give me a cashier's check?" And said, "Well, what's the number?" They tell us. He says, "Oh, there's only $10 in that account. You must have been putting your money in a different account." And the guy faints away. It's in some of the stories he dies on the spot. He faints. So, but the point is, the moral of the story is that all the effort that one puts into material happiness and security and all the relationships and all of these different things is time that's wasted. You're wasting your precious human life. And that's because you believe something to be true that isn't true. That you are this body, that you can be happy in emolument of the body. And also it means that you push out reality, that's obvious reality, that it's all got to come to an end. That's the most amazing thing, according to Yudhishthira. That every day human beings, being dragged out of the souls dragged out of their body and go to Yamaraj because they're so sinful, they forget acting. And millions and millions. But those who are left are thinking, I got my situation together, it's going to last forever, They're acting as if they're going to live forever. But it's madness. So what's really important? That what knowledge is important to cultivate? Obviously the knowledge that will give us the actual means by which we can escape this prison house, this reformatory. It's a madhouse. And now, it's more of a madhouse because everyone bought guns. I mean, the amount of guns in America are crazy. Imagine if we were chanting and dancing down there, and suddenly you see a guy walk by with a submachine gun, which is it legal now? I mean, some places you can walk by with a submachine, or even a pistol, What's he doing, Is he crazy? It's one thing to be crazy, and then another thing to be crazy with a gun. Now, and the real thing, we got crazy people with nuclear bombs. The whole thing is it's mad. This is the actual nature. So what can we do as devotees? Constantly chant Hare Krishna. That's the first instruction of Lord Chaitanya. In other words, always be ready for the worst that may happen. Just like this pandemic, But we're not changing our activities. We're just intensifying the activities we're already doing. And it was kind of miraculous to me how when the pandemic really hit, we had devotees joining, different devotees. We didn't have a lot of bhaktas here, but one after another, people took seriously. Glenn was coming for a year before you joined, I think a whole year. But we could see it was serious, it was great, he had a job, it's responsibilities. But somehow, when the pandemic hit, the mood was kind of intensified everything. I got to take it seriously, So devotees see, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. Krishna says part of knowledge is to see the evils of birth, old age, disease, and death. Always have that in the back of your mind. Now, our ultimate purpose is not liberation. But that can serve as a good impetus to keep us sincere on the path of transcendence, of bhakti. At a certain point, you can actually relish spiritual pleasure at every moment, and then you realize my real purpose is to increase this by becoming more and more pure, and the liberation will take care of itself. And that's actually what happens. Devotees feel liberated. I was feeling, I've expended just to decrease the desire for all those things that are destroying your life, but you can't give them up because that's all you have. That's your pleasure is the drugs and the sex and all this stuff. And even though that's got to. But when you have the alternative of Krishna consciousness and you're actually feeling some pleasure in Harinam and just to practice it, then it becomes possible, and you can see how insignificant it is and damaging. So that's what this Jadabharata is trying to wake up the king now to this, because the king, is entangled. And he's withdrawing him, trying to withdraw his attention from the materialistic part of the Vedas. That came up in the previous purport. Krishna is deriding those who are Vedavada Rata. Balaram, you know what that phrase means? No, that's in the verse beginning that way. Kamatmana Swarga Purad Janma Kriya Bahulam Bhogaishaya Gatimadim. Vedavada Rata are so-called knowers of the Vedas, who are focused on the Karma Kanda. And they say that's all there is. They say that's the real purpose of the Vedas. Pushpitam Vacham. They're, the flowery words. One of these days, I was going to call it up, but I forgot. The internet. Someone was talking about the Rig Veda in class. This was a couple of years ago. And I said, let me see if I have the Rig Veda. I downloaded the whole Rig Veda, doing the class from the internet, free. And I looked at one of the verses later, the beginning, and sure enough, it's a prayer to Indra, and it's all materialistic. It's all about material. And the whole thing began like that. You're praying to the demigods, or Agni, Indra, different demigods. But the motive is, let me join you up there, in Indraloka. So that's the flowery words of the Vedas, describing the wonders of Indraloka and what is it, Nandakanana, his garden up there, But devotees see that as just a sky flower. It's like insignificant. When you hear about Goloka Vrindavan, and you're able to taste even a minute portion of it, by kirtan and service and what we do every day, or go to India and Vrindavan, then nobody wants to go to heaven. I mean, I don't know any devotee to go to heaven or merge into the Brahmajyoti. Does anyone have any temptations to go there? It's a great blessing, really, because Prabhupada, he goes through the different categories of human being, right? There's out-and-out karmis, Krishna Bhakta Niskama, Krishna Bhakta Niskama, Ataeva Shanta, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami, Sakaliya Shanta. So the Bhukti Kamis are those who are just after material, ordinary sense gratification, vast mass of people. But there are some who realize that that's crazy, and so they go after Mukti. But that's another kind of Kama. It means I want to be free from all miseries. Heck with everyone else. That's Kama. And then there's the Siddhi Kamis, the magical powers, and the opulence. You can imagine, getting anything you want from anywhere, So that's all part of Maya's trick. And then there's the bhaktas who don't want anything. That's not true. We don't want anything material. We want to please Krishna. We're focused on Krishna, always thinking of Krishna, how we can make a nice arrangement for it. And that's automatically gives you liberation and shows the other things to be completely insignificant. And you're on your way back to Godhead. You're giving up this dream. You're waking up from the dream. So Jadabharat will give this Rahugana some very, very strong instructions, as he already is, about waking up from this dream of the material world. Oh, I went over time. Any questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think I got one major question from everyone here. How can we get warmer? But okay, I'll have your question. You're probably nicely sitting at a nice warm desk. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yes, I'm very comfortable. Thank you very much. And if I may say it, Dravida Prabhu, there's a new email message waiting for an answer from your part.
Okay.
Please. The quote from the purport related to the verse you chose for today, 5:11:3, is as follows, quote, "If a person does not come to the conclusion that he has nothing to do with any kind of material happiness, he cannot come to the platform of understanding the absolute truth or Tattva Jnana," end quote. So my question is, in the context of this quote, what is the difference between absolute truth and relative truth?
Well, yeah, I mean, the relative truth means that, all right, we tried A, B, C, and D, and it didn't make us happy. We can see we went down the wrong path. But E or F, that's what we should do. And so in the material consciousness, you're simply making distinctions between different varieties of illusion, and that's what material life is. That Ravers, some of you must know this verse by heart. I quoted it in every other class. Yes, yet. How's it go? Duk aushadam tadabidukam. Prahlad is saying, Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers, he says, Yasmat priya priya yoga suyoga janma shoka agnana sakala yonashadayamana. That's it. That material life consists of this, is that we establish certain attachments to things, beginning with our body, and then with other bodies, there's a whole bunch of things. But eventually, those things are taken away from us. Or, they're not physically taken away, but your ability to enjoy them is taken away. So that's priya viyoga. And then the things which we don't want, like COVID-19, are forced upon us. Or they may be forced upon us, so we have to become afraid of them. We have to take all these precautions. So this is called a fire of lamentation. And he said, I've been suffering in different bodies. But in the human body, we have dukkha aushadhi. We have remedies for this dukkha. We can try to preserve the things that are dear, or we get new things that are dear, and we kind of avoid. We have all defenses against the things that are painful. But the remedies often produce more dukkha. So take a pharmaceutical, and it relieves the pain for a while, but it has the side effects. You become addicted to it. So this is more suffering and more illusion. So all of that is we haven't come to the conclusion yet. We have nothing to do with any material happiness. We're struggling hard to avoid the pain and maximize the material happiness. And therefore, we can't understand the absolute truth or tattva gyan. Because the absolute truth means we want to strive for that happiness where there's no end. There's no duality there. And it's not available in the material world. So it's not immediately perceivable. We can't understand it. And so until we come to the conclusion that we have nothing to do with material happiness, we can't come to the platform of understanding absolute truth. Now that understanding may not come at once. Just like the four regulative principles and all these, this is meant to withdraw us, prevent us from indulging in things that will we think will make us happy. So this is the basic principle of Lord Chaitanya's followers. It says in one place, vairagya, cultivating detachment from material happiness, and then we can be receptive to the message and understand the truth. All right, one last. That's as far as I can take it, Prabhu.
Yes, that's okay. Thank you very much. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
I will. Go ahead, Bob. Last comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you for allowing me. Einstein said you cannot solve the problem with the same mindset that created it.
Yeah, very good. That's a good realization. If you're in the material mindset, you're not going to solve your problem, which is ultimately spiritual. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.